conclusions. Now on to the next story. Story 2. AITA for ignoring my injured mom after she cut me out of her will? I, 50F, am the eldest of divorced parents. My father is happily remarried with more kids, but my mother stayed single and relies on me and my younger brother, 45, to come help her out in her retirement village regularly. It's a flight and a rental car to get to her, so it's kind of a pain. What makes it worse is that my younger brother, who is single with no kids, will never go down when she needs something, only when it aligns with his schedule. So he'll go down during his summer vacation and then help with things like moving furniture or taking her car in to be serviced. However, if it's an emergency of any kind, it's all on me. I'm married with kids in school and a decent career and a side gig, but all hell breaks loose if I don't go. Passive-aggressive texts, relatives pestering, etc. When I ask if anyone else could step in, the answer is always, but you're the one she wants. How big a deal can this be? This woman is the most accident and illness-prone human you'll meet. And it's all for real. In the last few years, it's been a head-on car collision, cancer twice, another car accident, T-boned, and pneumonia. She wasn't like this growing up, just since retiring. So even staying the least amount of days, to the point of having to go back once when the caregiver I found flaked. I've burned through PTO, cashed in savings, left the kids to have milestones without me. And usually when I'm with her, she talks on and on about my golden brother. See how he hung that new picture when he was here? He's so handy. Annoying as hell, but I've had a lifetime to get used to it. Some months ago, I found out by accident that except for some small amounts for my kids, she's leaving everything to my brother. It will be a decent amount, $250,000. I was so perplexed and admittedly hurt. She refused to talk to me about it, hung up on me and ignored texts, so I was stuck trying to figure out what I did to make her decide to do this. Eventually, one of her siblings told me that it was to ensure my brother can retire comfortably. He's always worked low-wage jobs. However, he has few expenses because he lives completely free with a wealthy relative who has a large home that he will also be inheriting. Recently, she had another accident and called me to help. I got the call from the hospital and then her rehab center because even though my brother is her medical POA, I'm always the name and number she gives out. When I didn't say I'd be coming, she sent texts complaining of how hard it is to not be able to drive or do many things and push for my travel plans. My love for her and care for her was never based on money. She's my mom, but I ended up telling her I couldn't come down. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I know she's in pain and struggling. I know that her siblings and friends are too old and too far to be much help. But in a moment of spite, I told her to get my brother to do it, and of course she defended him and added that he couldn't, as a guy, help with some things. My spouse says I'm in the right, that I've prioritized her needs all my life, and even if it's because of the will, it was past time for me to stop doing everything. But others, especially family, can't understand why I haven't gone down yet, and I end up feeling so disappointed in myself. Mom sends me, woe is me texts about how she will manage without me even though everything's a struggle. The injuries are legitimately difficult. Now she's sending texts about how she understands I'm too busy, and she'll call the youngest of her siblings, 67F, if she has to. Now on to the next story. Story 3. AITA for slapping a woman that was protecting my baby. I, 31M, Tim, and my wife 29F, Ashley, welcome our healthy baby boy, Ned, into the world 6 months ago. Her brother, Mike, is a 24M with special needs. He has had many medical issues since birth and is different than most people. However, he is the kindest and most fun person to be around, especially when he is talking about sports. When Ned was born, Mike was very hesitant in holding him, but was very curious about him. This last month, Mike actually wanted to hold Ned. My wife and I were thrilled. We do have rules in place for him holding Ned, but Mike likes the rules. Mike needs to be sitting down and my wife, Mike's parents, or I need to be around. This is mainly in case Ned gets fussy, we can take him from Mike, so he doesn't get overwhelmed. A week ago, Ashley's cousin Don's daughter Lily graduated high school and was throwing a party with her best friend Anna. We know both of the girls and wanted to go celebrate with them. Mike wanted to come, but his parents didn't, which was totally fine, and we brought him. Ashley was on an outdoor patio couch talking with Don while I had Ned. I was talking to a coworker that happened to be a friend of Anna's family. Mike came up and asked to hold Ned, which we went over to Ashley and he sat down. I gave Ned to Mike and asked Ashley if she needed a water since I was going to grab a beer from our cooler. I went to get the drink and was talking with my coworker when a woman, Karen, started screeching saying, "He shouldn't be touching that baby." We live in a place heavily influenced by certain religions, and she was saying how someone like Mike shouldn't be holding babies. She was screaming that Mike would drop Ned and hurt him, and how is everyone just ignoring it? Ashley asked the woman to stop yelling and stood up standing in the view of the Karen for Mike. She was telling Mike he was fun, but the woman kept screaming that he was going to hurt Ned. This got Mike flustered, in turn made Ned start to cry. Ashley took Ned from Mike, who instantly was covering his ears. I started heading towards them when Ashley was asking the woman to stop and leave them alone. Karen responded with, "How could a mother let an abomination from God hold onto an innocent baby? He's going to hurt the baby now and in the future." As she is yelling, she was getting closer to my wife and pointing at Mike over and over. Before I reached her, my wife turned and slapped the woman across the face. Karen stopped yelling for a moment, and I came up and took Ned from Ashley. Some man came over and grabbed the Karen who was freaking out that Ashley had hit her. Ashley told Karen if she keeps yelling that she would give her a black eye to go with the handprint on her face. Don was able to help get the Karen away from us. Ashley had to lift Mike off of the couch and guide him to the car so we could leave. I grabbed Ned's stuff and went to the car where Mike was crying and apologizing for hurting Ned. Ashley was crying and telling him he did nothing wrong. I drove to my in-laws and told them everything. Mike was able to get into a therapist the next day and has been going every day. In the middle of the week, my wife went to talk with Lily, and Anna happened to be there as well. Ashley felt bad that their party got ruined, and Anna was apologizing that her aunt did that. Ashley had gotten the girls' massage certificates to apologize and help them celebrate going into college. Anna tried not to take it, but my wife insisted. It wasn't Anna's fault that the adult Karen acted the way she did. Currently, Mike is still going to therapy, but the therapist said an event like this can take some time. He will come around Ned and is happy to see him, but won't ask to hold him. If you ask Mike to hold Ned, he will quickly say no and leave the room. Taking some commenters' advice, we are going to try just hanging out with Mike on a blanket on the floor with Ned to see if it helps him be more comfortable. Karen has found Ashley on social media and has messaged her along with some friends and family. From what I gathered, she is only telling people she was protecting the baby and my wife hit her for no reason. She has threatened to sue, but as of today hasn't done anything. I work with a lawyer who has put me in touch with one that is willing to represent my wife if it ever comes to that. Fingers crossed that Mike will be comfortable to soon hold his nephew. We will also try to update if things change. My wife vented to one of her friends and her mommy, and me class that ended up telling everyone what happened. All of the moms say my wife went too far when striking the woman. That has made my wife wonder if her protective instincts were too much. She was worried for her child and brother's safety and didn't want to give Karen the chance to get physical. I hope this makes more sense for people, and thank you for all the loving comments so far. Now on to the next story. Story 4. AITA for leaving my sister's wedding early after her maid of honor humiliated me in her speech. I 27F was a bridesmaid at my older sister's wedding last week. The wedding was beautiful, and everything seemed perfect until the reception. During the reception, the maid of honor, who has been my sister's best friend since childhood, gave her speech. It was emotional and all, but then she made a joke about how I was the family screw-up who finally managed to do something right by not messing up my bridesmaid duties. Everyone laughed, but I didn't find it funny. For context, I've had a rough few years. I struggled with my mental health and dropped out of college for a while. I've since gotten my life back on track, but it's still a sensitive topic for me. Hearing that joke in front of all our family and friends wasn't funny at all. My sister's best friend and I never really got along, but still I never expected something like this from her. Especially the day wasn't about me at all, then why bring me up in the speech? I tried to stay composed, but I felt the tears coming, so I quietly left the reception and went outside to collect myself. My sister followed me out and asked what was wrong. When I told her, she said it was just a joke and she meant nothing bad. I tried to go back inside, but I just couldn't, and I ended up leaving the wedding early. My parents understand why I was upset, but my sister is angry with me. I do feel terrible for leaving, but I also feel like I had the right to feel hurt and humiliated. Edit 1. I said nothing at the moment because I didn't want to cause a scene on my sister's special day. And I can't reason with her right now because she will just ask me if I haven't been taking my meds lately. That's what she does when she's angry with me, so I'm giving her some time to maybe realize how her best friend's joke was out of line. Edit 2. Someone asked me if my sister's best friend and I argued before / did I give her a reason to do this. My sister's best friend and I never went past high. She told me before, few years ago, that she, in general, doesn't feel comfortable around someone struggling mentally because in her head God only knows what they're capable of. Since she said this / to this day, I just try to avoid her. Update. My dad called to check up on me and see if my sister and I had talked things out. When I told him no, he said it's better if we talk about it now and assured me that I have nothing to apologize for. If my sister thinks she has nothing to apologize for, then the least she can do is make her best friend apologize or fully realize that the joke was out of line. By the way, my brother and I met 4 days ago, and he told me that Bill, my sister's husband, didn't like the way the MOH called me a screw-up in front of everyone, and some of those who laughed voiced later that they did so out of nervousness. On Monday, my sister called me to talk. When I made it to her place, her best friend was on the phone and didn't put it down for a second. My sister started by saying that just a few years ago I would have laughed hard and not taken the joke as an insult. I told her maybe some laughed because they don't know the reason she called me a screw-up. For context, when I was 16 something happened, and that's why I struggled mentally really badly between 16 to 18. When I was 17 I was diagnosed with PTSD and later with depression and anxiety. Since then I don't like it when someone touches my head, especially my hair and the back of my head / neck. My sister knows everything. During our conversation my sister did most of the talking. At some point I felt like my sister had called me just to blame me again without trying to understand my perspective. When I tried to talk, she put her hand on the back of my neck and pulled me toward her with each sentence as if to say, "Do you understand?" Or, "Okay." I hated it and felt irritated. I honestly kept thinking, if I pushes her away, would I be in the wrong? Would they just call me mental and tell family I got physical? I tried to leave, but she insisted that no one was leaving until we sort this out. She told her best friend to just apologize. She refused and reminded my sister that I was the reason her husband got angry at her on their wedding day because I couldn't take a joke, and when I tried to explain why, I told her if she had focused her speech on the bride/groom, then maybe he wouldn't have had a reason to be angry. She refused to listen and brushed my words off. She said, "Yeah, whatever. Sorry." I was glad it was finally over, and as I was about to leave, I heard her say, "Can't take a joke that everyone knows is true." Both of them laughed, but my sister stopped mid-laugh and apologized. I didn't say anything and left. I think I've had enough. I mean, I know I've had a few rough years. I dropped out of college for a while, fine, but I've since gotten my life back on track. My parents helped me through it all and never made me feel like a burden. At first, I was on some strong meds that made me feel tired/sleepy most of the time. After a while, I started to feel a little better with therapy and my family's support. During that period, it was me, my parents, and my brother. My sister was 3 hours away for a job and used to visit sometimes and would often bring her best friend along with her. Looking back, I don't want to say she hates me, but I know she felt ashamed to have a family member struggling with mental health issues. I don't know how to explain this. I've made up my mind and decided to go and see for now. If my parents and my brother, who were there when I was going through it all, never made me feel that they're ashamed of me, then why would she? I'm still on some meds, but feels much better than before. I have a stable job, my own place, and friends who loves me for who I am. I can say I'm proud of myself a little. I love my family to death and tried to maintain a relationship with my sister all these years, but I'm trying to improve myself, not constantly be reminded of what I was a few years ago. Now on to the next story. Story 5. AITA for feeling my wife of 25 years has essentially taken away my chance at ever having offspring and probably doesn't love me. As the title says, I am 44, always planned on having kids with my wife, F43. We have a video we recorded together for our future children when we were younger. I didn't want to start until I was absolutely sure we were financially stable enough to support a kid. I can distinctly remember when that day came about 12 years ago. Suddenly, she wasn't so sure, which came as a complete shock to me. After much conversation, she agreed I'd make a great father, and we could finally stop using condoms. Yes, they were always required prior to that. Now it seemed like she started keeping track of her cycles, but I think we only tried, on the proper day, once or twice in a 2-year period. I feel like the keeping track she did was to make sure we didn't do it on those certain days. So here's where stuff gets really messed up. Spurred on by our dog's coming demise, I started researching why we never ended up having kids and came across some texts during that same time period where she had a 2 to 3 year affair. It was the guy that actually broke it off with her in the end because he knew she was married and didn't want to be a homewrecker. This made her intensely angry at me for 2 years. I had no idea why she was so mad. Honestly, now I wish she would have left me for him, so I could at least have a chance at finding a woman that truly loves me enough to have our baby. Did I mention that she cut me off of all sex since the affair, while still being intimate with him for over another 6 months? And it'll be 10 years this August since we made love. She claimed it was due to pain, but never went to doctors about it. Not even a handy on my birthday, no matter how many times I asked. Only recently after all this did we finally figure out what may be the worst part of this. She has bad CPTSD from childhood, which was erroneously attributed to agoraphobia and social anxiety for over a decade. So I have 2 choices. 1. Stick with the women I've loved for over 25 years and help her recover from the CPTSD. 2. Find a woman who loves me, and I love her, enough to have kids in very short order. Edit. Well, I had no idea this post would get so many replies. Thank you, kind Redditors, for reinforcing what I figured you'd all say. Sigh. I'll read all the messages and reply when I'm back home in a couple of hours. Edit 2. So I'm seeing lots of questions about why I didn't do more during the last 10 years. I've answered some of that in the comments, see below, but I think it's important I point out that I was trying to fill that hole in my heart for kids with pets. We lost our 12-years-old cat summer before last, and our 8-years-old shepherd needed surgery pregnant with our second baby. We live in a major city, and his mother lives in a suburb 45 minutes north of us. Her doctor works out of a hospital located downtown in our city, and my MIL will often stay over at our place after her appointments instead of driving back to her home, as her appointments usually end right around when rush hour begins. Yesterday was one of these days. She went to have some labs drawn at the hospital, and then came over to our home when I was just about done cooking dinner. My husband was at the gym. I had a long day yesterday. I felt absolutely exhausted from pregnancy and chasing my toddler around all day. We were running low on groceries with not a lot of dinner options, so I was planning to make a really easy dinner of spaghetti with frozen meatballs. But when I went in the kitchen to start cooking, I realized that we were actually out of the meatballs I thought we still had. It was too late to go to the store to get something else to make. My kid was already acting hungry, and I was starving and exhausted. So I just thought, well, I guess we don't need to have protein with every single meal and made the pasta without meatballs. When Maya Mael saw me putting my son in his seat and serving him his food, she said, "Just pasta?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot I used up all our frozen meatballs until I was already cooking, so it's a meatless dinner night." And she said that she wished I would have texted her, and she would have grabbed me meatballs from the store on her way so that her grandson and her grandbaby-to-be could have a real dinner. This really irked me as his meal was a real dinner, and it's not like I don't serve him protein. He had protein with breakfast and lunch yesterday. I also don't like how she referred to her grandbaby-to-be getting a real meal as I'm pregnant, and so it's obviously me who has to eat in order to nourish the baby. It's me that's not getting a real meal, according to her logic. It made me feel like she sees me as some kind of vessel and really made me mad. I told her that maybe she's uneducated with how much protein humans actually need, and there's nothing wrong with our dinner. She immediately got very upset that I called her uneducated when she's raised 3 boys and she knows what growing boys need to eat, and told me I should try and plan harder next time. This last comment sent me over the edge, and I yelled at her to get out of my house if she's just going to shit all over my mothering abilities, and that she needs to stop using our place as a home base in the city when she has her appointments if she's going to make comments like that. She left in a huff, screaming about how she couldn't believe I was kicking her out over some constructive criticism before she even got to spend time with her grandson. I told her I'm not looking for any type of criticism from her. She called my husband and said I went on a hormone-induced rage, and kicked her out because I couldn't deal with being called out on not serving my son a proper dinner, and said she wants to keep coming over after her appointments. My husband wants both of us to apologize to each other to make peace. But I told him I'm not some elementary schooler who's going to be forced to apologize when I didn't do anything wrong just to make the issue go away. Now he's mad at me too, and I'm wondering if I actually didn't do anything wrong.